am in the trenches where all of you soon will be. And I'm here today as a part of speechtherapypd.com. So we are very excited. We have a returning guest, Demi Fritz, who is here with us. She's also very well known on Instagram, known as SLP Resume. Demi joined us for our first episode on how to build the resume. And she is back bringing with her loads of expertise when it comes to any and all things surrounding the interview process. So welcome back, Demi. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share some interview tips.
Yes, admit it. You can't get enough of us. You love coming back.
I do. I was so excited for tonight. I couldn't hold myself back.
Well, thank you for all that you are contributing to this series. I know that there is lots of pressure really that surrounds the interviewing process. And as a business owner myself at Golden State Speech, I interview a lot of SLPs and SLPAs. So I really understand, and I hear constantly about the fears and the emotions and the nerves that come into play around this very topic. It's like, what do we wear? What do we say? What do we do if we don't know the answer? Who's going to be there? There's just so many emotions that can come and flow about when we are thinking about scheduling and then sitting in that maybe very first interview, or maybe it's not your first interview. Maybe these nerves are coming up for you in each of the interviews that you're doing. So I'm excited to jump right in and hear, Demi, what you have to share to support graduate students with having a very successful interview process.
Absolutely. Before we jump in, I just want to give you guys a little background on my interviewing skills and where I've been, because I feel like that gives you a little perspective of like where I'm coming from. So I've interviewed for over 25 positions and I've gotten every single one of them out of graduate school. So I moved a few times. I wasn't happy in a few positions. So there was a lot of like, well, I'm just going to interview. Why not? You know? So I have gotten every position. And then recently with starting SLP Resume, I've been interviewing people. So I've interviewed about 30 people or so for my business. And I've learned so much about how or what interviewers look for by doing this. And I'm sure you can understand that completely with your business. So I just feel like it's a really well-rounded perspective of like what an interviewer has to go through in order to be successful.
Yes.
So here are some tips. Let's jump right in.
And I love that about you, Demi. You mentioned that in the last time that we talked with you. You do your research. So you've been somebody who's interviewed, you're somebody who's interviewing, you talk to a lot of different people, and that's how you bring about all the research that you have.
Yes,
I love that.
I am very research driven. I think it's important to have facts to back up what you're saying, or else anybody can do it, you know? So I'm really into making sure that everything I say is coming from a place of research and other people's perspectives and making sure that everything's really well-rounded.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
Of course. Okay, so let's jump right into interviewing. So first things first, these are just a few of my top interviewing tips. So first thing is to always be honest. There is such a stigma with being like having to always have an answer in an interview. And I think that's just the really wrong way to think about it. Most of you guys who are watching this are clinical fellows. So you are not expected to know everything. That is like the last expectation that any employer has for you. Okay. So let's just get that off the table. I think what's really powerful in an interview is if you can say, you know what, I'm not really sure, but I'm going to look this up on ASHA, or I'm going to do some research. I'm going to talk to an old professor and really find out. Because for me personally, like as a business owner, I would rather know that you're going to be honest with me about something that you don't know so I can teach you, as opposed to you trying to do something that you don't know how to do and then maybe upsetting a client or getting it over your head somewhere and trying to dig yourself out. Like personally, I just feel like honesty is so much more important than you knowing a correct answer. You can always look anything up. Like that's not the issue. So honesty is really important. The next thing is to be really specific. The more specific you are, the more memorable you are. So you really want to be as specific as possible. The more like general interview answers that you give, it's kind of like, wait, what did she say? Oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you really want to give really specific, clear-cut answers to your interview questions. And we can talk more about that when we talk about stories. Okay. Sorry.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated. People.
Another interview tip.
Reminder, drink some water. All right. The next thing is practice confidence building strategies. So I really believe that about 70% of the interview is confidence. If you can go in and have excitement and confidence and positivity towards the position, you are going to stand out over somebody who might know more than you, but is nervous and timid and scared, right? So if I were to say, "Hi, my name's Demi Fritz. It's so nice to meet you. I'm so excited to be here today." Versus, "Hi, I'm Demi Fritz. It's so nice to be here today. Thanks so much for having me." Same words, completely different messages. So if you go in and you go in with that energy and that positivity and that enthusiasm, you are going to stand out in a positive way. Okay. Few confidence building strategies that I've used in the past are I've completely removed the word nervous from my vocabulary when I'm talking about an interview. I am excited. I am pumped. I am thrilled to be in there and show them all these wonderful things that I know about this field and how amazing of an SLP I'm going to be in this position. I never, ever, ever say the words, "I'm nervous for this interview," because you're telling your brain you're nervous when you don't need to tell your brain you're nervous.
That's true.
Okay? Right? And so I think if you tell your brain you're excited, you're ready, you're pumped up for this interview, you're giving your brain a minute to be like, "Wait, yeah, we are excited. This is good. This is gonna be good for us. We're gonna show them, you know." Another thing that I really like to do is manifest. I'm a huge believer in manifestation and like picturing yourself in the position, literally like visualize yourself playing on the floor with your future clients at this job. Okay. It's really powerful tool because your brain will subconsciously make decisions to help you get to that goal if you have that goal. Okay. It's unbelievable. I'm a huge believer in manifestation and just
I
like,
love that. Me too. I love that.
you are?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured you would be because of your mind tips last time I talked to you, and I was like, she's totally manifest. Yeah. And then the last thing that I feel like is a really good thing to do before any interview is, okay, don't laugh, but I am a big believer in the Superman pose in the mirror. So before every single interview I did, when I was applying for all 25 jobs, I stood in the mirror, whether it was at the place and I was by myself in the bathroom or I was at my house, stood in the mirror like Superman. And I was like, "You have got this, girl. Like, you are going to go to that interview. You're going to crush this out. You are going to show them how much they are going to love you and you are ready for it." Okay. Give yourself a pep talk. You know, if you can't see the positives in yourself, how do you expect the employer to see those positives as well?
Amen.
Right? So give yourself that little like pep talk and literally stand in the mirror like Superman. Okay.
I know, I just tried it.
Good. I know a lot of you are like, "Wait, didn't you see that on Grey's Anatomy?" I did this before Grey's Anatomy did it. So I was in original and they copied me. So we'll go with
All
that.
right, we're gonna do the pose. You
Yep.
got it.
The next thing we're going to talk about is interview stories. So when I graduated, I went to an interview and I memorized probably 300 answers and questions. I didn't even know what I was memorizing, but I was like, "I'm going to have every single answer that I could possibly have ready to go." Okay. I walk in the interview. They're like, "Demi, we're so excited to meet you." I'm like, "Yay, me too. I'm ready for any question you have for me."
Except the one they're about to ask. I see where this is going.
Uh-huh. So they asked me 5 questions and not a single one of them was one that I had prepared for. And I was like, why did I just spend like probably 40 hours of my life memorizing all these answers and questions?
Oh, wow.
I know I was like trying to be over prepared and, go over the top. It was my first interview.
Yes.
Yeah. So from this, what I've kind of done over the years, which has been so much more beneficial, is I actually create stories that cover different topics. So in my interview prep sessions, I give you a list of about 14 different categories, and those 14 categories cover about 90% of interview questions. So you can memorize like 5 to 8 stories that correlate with those categories and you're covered. You don't have to worry about memorizing a million answers and questions. You can go in feeling comfortable with whatever answer or question that they're going to ask you. Obviously, interviewee questions, SLP questions are a little bit different just because it's like you may be more technical, but like those behavioral, scary interview questions that like people don't really know how to answer sometimes, you're covered 100%.
I love
So
that.
getting that list, sign up for interview prep with me.
Okay, so no 40 hours of practicing answers. We just look at what you have as far as your interview stories. We memorize those. We're good. Okay.
Exactly. I'm never doing that again. That was awful. I never want my clients doing that again. And it's ineffective, like you sound scripted, you sound over prepared, it doesn't flow well, and yeah.
Right.
Okay, and then the last thing, I know we talked a lot about soft skills last time I saw you, Stephanie, but I just think it's really important to kind of hit this home. Soft skills are so important. In the last presentation, we talked about how soft skills can get you a job over somebody else, basically. If you can demonstrate to the employer that you have them, you have got this. So in your interview, I want you talking about, oh, I have great organization skills. I am able to manage a schedule really effectively. I am very prompt. I make sure my clients are seen on time. Like, those are things that are important to me. Just be over the top by saying your soft skills. And I know it sounds uncomfortable to do because you're like, I don't want to say those things about myself, because we're like scared to, and I don't know why, but okay, question. Would a businessman ever just like be scared to say something positive about himself?
I would guess maybe not.
No, they would never. No, they would never like minimize anything. They would never like, oh, I guess I'm okay at that. No, never. Okay. So we need to get over that hump of like being nervous to say something positive about ourselves. Okay. And it's something that, we've all struggled with at one point or another, I'm sure. But it's time to move on from that and time to get this empowering force with us, because we are smart. We are so like gifted in these areas that we need to be able to show our employers exactly how gifted we are. So be honest.
Yes. And what I'm hearing about when you're talking about these soft skills, like you mentioned, organization, or I'm on time for my clients, it sounds like we might be able to connect those soft skills back to some of our core values. Because I'm all
Absolutely.
about being on time and punctual, like being punctual. And I mean, that's something that I hold as, a value of mine. So maybe if you can take those soft skill like organization and tie them back to what matters to you, what your values are, what's important to you, and share those in that way. Would that align with what you're talking about with the soft skills?
Absolutely. And what I tell my clients sometimes is almost make like a mission statement for yourself. What are you going to bring to the table? And that's exactly what you're talking about, is
Oh, I
those.
like that.
Yeah, like make a mission statement. Think about what your priorities are for these positions and these roles, and what you're going to really bring into this new position, because everybody can, every single person that you're interviewing against has their graduate degree. What's going to make you different? What are you really going to bring value to for this position? So I love that you said that. And I think that's goes really well with that mission statement. Yes.
Yes. No, these are wonderful. So beautiful. Okay, we've got the 4 point. Nope, go ahead. So we've got be
Sorry.
honest, practice confidence. Yep, I love that. Creating interview stories and don't be afraid to show your soft skills. And don't forget the Superman pose. All right. What else do you have for us?
All right. This is probably one of my most common, whenever I do like question boxes on Instagram, this is one that I always get. I am a huge believer in not turning your strengths or your weaknesses into strengths. I've heard this answer so many times, or like things like, oh, well, I'm just too perfect, or I'm too organized. And I say yes too much, and that's my weakness. I just feel like it's overplayed. It's overdone. It's not authentic. And it goes back to that like being honest thing. You're not being honest. Let's really talk about something that you could really improve on and help with. Okay. So what I tell my clients is find an area that's appropriate for where you are in your career, and find an area that you could really be honest with. So for example, when I graduated, I did not know what an occupational therapist did. I was like, I had never had the opportunity to work with one. I was like, what, do they help people find jobs? Like, I don't get it. So my first job or one of my first interviews, I was asked this question, and I was like, to be honest with you, I'm probably going to need a little support in understanding how to collaborate with an OT. I have not done that yet, and I'm really excited to learn. I have, all this knowledge about occupational therapy, or I don't have all this knowledge about occupational therapy, but I'm really excited to jump into that and to learn how to collaborate more effectively for our clients. And the guy stopped me and he was like, that's the most honest thing we've heard all day. You're hired. Like, on the spot.
Wow.
I know, because they appreciate honesty. And I think that's really
Mhm.
where people get lost, is like they get stuck in, I have to be perfect. I have to have every right answer. And that's just like, it's not realistic, you know? I mean, it's just not. So other examples could be like maybe evaluation report writing. Maybe you haven't done that a lot yet, and that's okay. So take that and find an area that you really do need support in, as opposed to creating a fake strength. Okay.
You're throwing me back to when I used to do interviews before I had a lot of AAC experience. It was always the question that I would dread being asked because I didn't have a lot of AAC. So if someone said to me, well, what devices are you familiar with? What systems have you used? I remember that would be something that I think, well, do I have to kind of just say my most minimal experience? But no, you're saying, we can just say, I have zero experience with this. I would love to learn, but if you're looking for somebody who has a
Yeah.
lot of knowledge in this area, it ain't me. It ain't me.
And if
Okay.
you do have an area, like this is something too you can do. Like if you have an area that you're really not super sure about, look up some courses that maybe you'd want to take. Look at speech pathology PD and see
Yes.
if you can find maybe a
Speech therapy PD. Yes.
speech therapy. I'm so sorry. I was like, there you go. Speech therapy PD. Look up some courses and see if maybe you can learn a new skill or a new task, or like a new understanding of a different perspective, and say, I don't have exactly a ton of experience in this, but these are the
Right.
courses I plan on taking. Just be prepared to answer that. And I think that's more impressive than you coming up with something that's like, I say yes too much, because don't ever say that in an interview. Okay. Don't ever
Just
do
don't
that.
say yes too much anyways.
No, don't say yes unless you're getting paid extra. Do not say yes to something. Okay.
Unless you really, really want to say yes, then it's fine.
And
Say
it's fine, but don't do it because it's because you
yes.
have to. All right. The next thing is always follow up within 24 hours of your interview. If you interview at 4 o'clock on a Friday, email them at 5 o'clock on a Friday. Make sure it's always within 24 hours. I do have an interview email template available, and there's different layers. So I have one for a clinical fellow, one for a professional SLP, and then one for those applying to graduate schools. So go ahead and check this out if you need it, but always within
Mhm.
24 hours.